Hello, I'm Don Rogers, and this is the Junk Man. Well, the junkyard man has good times, where the poor man has hard times. Transmissions, radiator, brake lines, but the junkyard man needs dollar signs. It's greasy hands, bloody knuckles, strip threads, tires, shoulder metal, where work treads. The grease monkey's money on an old pan man's a T-bone steak for the junk man. Yeah, the junk man, the junk man. When the people get the blues, he gets a new pair of shoes. But the poor man, he's on the junk plan. The recession hits him hard, and it's down to the old junkyard. There's transmission fluid in the bare dirt. In the backseat window there's a dirty shirt. Weeds growing up through the wheel wells. He'll crush everything that he can't sell. There's dried up blood on the dashboard and a handful of change laying in the floor. Young people died before they should, but them rear quarter panels look pretty good. Yeah, the junk man, the junk man. When the people get the blues, well, he gets a new pair of shoes. But the poor man, he's on the junk plan. The recession hits him hard, and it's back to the old junkyard. Down on the roadside, his alternator quit and his car died. Now he's got no money for his sweetheart, cause he spent it all down at the junkyard. Yeah, the junkyard man has good times, when the poor man has hard times. His transmissions, radiator, brake lines, for the junkyard man means dollar signs. Yeah, the junk man, the junk man. When the people get the blues, well, he gets a new pair of shoes. But the poor man, he's on the junk plan. The recession hits him hard, and it's down to the old junkyard.
All right. So, folks, welcome to What the Shuck from Boone's Creek Lodge. We're really excited for you all to be joining us. We have some live friends, and we're going to be having a really awesome night. Tonight, I'm joined by Don Rogers of Owensville, Kentucky. And, man, love that song. I just got to say, I think that you're like a tried and true, just traditional Kentucky songwriter. The stuff you write about is just, it's really relatable, even if you don't know what the person's talking about. And I think that the music that you make is just always super digestible, and I always enjoy it. The story you're telling, the lesson you're telling, I like a lot. I like what you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about what would influence someone to make a song like Junkman, or just some of the music that you make.
Well, there's a few things that went into that. Let's see. I guess one is I was working. Well, I grew up having to try to piece cars together. When I got a car, I didn't grow up poor, but we didn't have a lot, so we had to kind of keep a car together. And there was 3 of us boys close to the same age, so we ended up having to go out to the junkyard quite a bit over in Montgomery County. There's a bunch of junkyards over in Montgomery County, out towards Camargo and Jeffersonville. And as it happens, I ended up working with a lady whose family ran one of those junkyards. And she's a great storyteller, and she just would tell stories about going to the junkyard, and her grandpa run the junkyard, and he'd always have on other people's clothes, that he got out of wrecked cars. And he'd have
shoes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and he grazed his cattle in the junkyard, in between the cars. And she said they'd sit down in the cars and pretend like they were driving, and then they would realize from evidence in the car that maybe somebody got hurt really bad or may have died in that car.
True.
So yeah, and I'll say this, that around the time I wrote that song, I was really into the drive-by truckers.
Okay.
Listening to Patterson Hood's songwriting really changed my idea about what you could write about, because I always felt like that he wrote about very relatable things to people who grew up in the South around my age, So anyway, that's what possessed me to write that song.
So what would you say some of your like great influences are as far as like music that you listen to that's made you sound the way that you sound?
The first stuff I remember listening to was when I was a kid. My dad had some old records of J.D. Crowe and Tony Rice. The first version of the New South, the J.D. Crowe and the New South that had Tony Rice and Ricky Skaggs in the band was one of the first records I ever remember seeing and kind of being fascinated looking at it. And also, Tony Rice had put out a record called Guitar a year or two before that, pretty much the same band.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really into that, and then I listened to country music all through the late 70s and 80s when I was a kid. So pretty much everything. And I didn't play a lot then, especially I didn't start playing fiddle until I was in my 30s. And I've realized, I recently went back and listened to some of the old country music I listened to when I was a kid, like George Strait and some of those first Hank Williams Jr. records, and that whole batch of stuff that was on the radio. Definitely Dwight Yoakam. I've always listened to that. And I realized that a lot of the fiddle licks I hear, especially when I'm playing behind a singer, is stuff that is on those records that I hadn't heard, for almost 40 years in some cases. And it's just like those lines really I was obsessed with music when I was a kid. There also was a radio station out of Stanton that I could pick up that had a bluegrass gospel show on Sundays and a bluegrass show on Sunday nights and Wednesdays. And they played a lot of bluegrass gospel, old Country Gentlemen, Doyle Austin, Quicksilver, that sort of generation of 70s bluegrass. Larry Sparks, Dave Evans, all that stuff. I was obsessed with that stuff. Keith Whitley, the version of J.D. Crowe's band that had Keith Whitley in it.
Yeah.
I remember that guy must have had that record because he would burn that up. He would play a couple of those songs and they stuck with me. So that, then I got into rock and roll music and electric music and started listening to bands like the Marshall Tucker Band, the Allman Brothers, the Grateful Dead, rock jam bands from the 70s. And the first band I had was a band that Roddy Puckett, who now plays with Wolf Pen Branch, he and I started when we were just basically learning together. And we were going after that stuff, Grateful Dead, Allman Brothers, eventually some of the early Fish and, sort of jam band stuff.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you have a pretty eclectic taste of music. That was like an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
There's straight up some names I didn't know, but it's...
Well, yeah. There also, along the way, my family played music. A generation that had passed on when I was a kid was my grandfather and his brothers all played music, and they played music around here, central and east central Kentucky. They played old time music and dance band music and that kind of stuff. So I got pretty into old traditional music too, and especially old traditional fiddle music, and sort of started learning that stuff along the way too.
Well, dude, we'll play us another song?
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's see here. I'll play you a dark song. Well, I've been in the presence of Ramsey Brown's gun, the one that the devil pulled the trigger on that August day in 1951. skies on the east side of town. That late summer day when the devil came round, the hope of the sunlight quickly sank down. Did it live in his closet? Did it hang on the wall? Or stand in the corner or at the end of the hall? Burn a hole in his sick mind, lift him up in the dark times when he felt small. Lord, let me live and I'll do right by you. Take care of my daughters and their daughters too. We'll cut all our losses, come down off these crosses when this is through. Our love was a season a long time ago. His darkness was hidden deep in his soul. And our quickly sank down. If I could just see September in the sunlight once more, and hope by December I could find a new shore. By then our wounds will be scars, our dreams won't be barred like before. Lord, let me live and I'll do right by you. Take care of my daughters and their daughters too. We'll cut all our losses, come down off the crosses when this is through. And I can see through the darkness lying here on the floor. Through these holes in my body the holy blood pours. He's turned out his own light, drifted off in the dark night forevermore. I have been in the presence of Ramsey Brown's gun, the one that the devil pulled the trigger on that hot August day in 1951.
All right, as you all can hear, there's a few more people here now than when we first started, but but coming to you all from Boones Creek Lodge here in Lexington, Kentucky with Don Rogers, and man, that was a pretty incredible song.
Thank you.
So kind of walk us through what, you know, obviously you play with a lot of bands and you play with a lot of acts, you do some solo stuff. Kind of walk us through all the instruments that you say you're a pretty humble guy. I don't know if you'll be like, I'm the man, but you're the man. So kind of tell us a little bit about playing all the instruments that you play.
Well, I started playing banjo, bluegrass banjo, when I was a teenager. That was sort of my first instrument that I went after with any seriousness. Then I kind of put that down when I went to college and started playing guitar. I could play a few chords on the guitar. That's what I really sort of dove into when I was telling you about starting the band with Roddy that we had, a band called the Green Jeans. That was a guitar-based band, and I was playing guitar in it. Then I started playing a lot of bluegrass guitar too. So electric guitar, bluegrass guitar sort of at the same time. And then I started playing some mandolin and fiddle when I was in my 30s. Our band, the Green Jeans, sort of quit playing as much, and I started playing in an old time band that played old time bluegrass and swing called the Kentucky Wild Horse, and I was playing guitar and mandolin. And then I started playing a little bit of fiddle. And as soon as you start playing a little bit of fiddle, people think you can play fiddle, and they start trying to get you to play in their bands. And so I was playing in bands with people, and then I'd listen back and be like, I'm really not doing very good at this. So I really kind of got pretty deep and serious on that. I mostly wanted to just learn old time tunes that my family played and that kind of thing. But then over the last few years, that's been my primary instrument, really. I play in a band called the Marble Creek Rangers. I play, my primary band is with the local Honeys. I play fiddle and acoustic guitar in the local Honeys, and I've recorded some with some folks. Actually, tomorrow, it will be April 16th, I'm going up to Mountain Stage to play some fiddle with Nicholas Jamerson on the Mountain Stage recording. So maybe by the time your podcast is out, the radio rebroadcast of that, or radio broadcast.
That's through NPR, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that's it. I play some Telecaster, like country Telecaster stuff. I have my own band called the Appalachians. It's sort of a rock country band. We play a lot of Dwight Yoakam stuff, a lot of stuff that sounds like that. John Looney and Anna Klein are big partners of mine. They live pretty close to me, and we play a lot together. Josh Anglin and Brandon May also play in that band. I don't know. I could go on and on. David Prince and I played in a band together for a while called the Giant Rooster Sideshow, which was big fun. We play about 2 or 3 times a year, and I played some gnarly fiddle in that, and he played his usual guitar, screaming guitar stuff. So it was a great band. But I've been involved in music, as long as I can remember. I've been obsessed with it, and involved in one way or the other. I do some teaching. I teach old-time traditional Kentucky music at the Cowan Creek Mountain Music School up in Letcher County every summer.
Okay.
And a few things like that.
I know Aaron Smith, he was like, man, I thought Aaron Smith was an incredible fiddle player. And
he is.
And he was like, I went to 2 lessons with Dawn, and I am on another planet, I feel like. So I think that speaks highly of not only your skill, but the fact that you're a good educator and teacher. So
I've been around good teachers, so I've picked that up from people like John Harrod that I've played in the band with, and Paul David Smith was an old fiddler from Pike County that I played with, and Jesse Wells played in our band for a while. Those guys are all great teachers, and I learned most of my fiddle stuff from them. So, and I love Aaron's playing. Aaron's a great fiddle player. He can use a fiddle like people use a horn, or he can play fiddle music. He can play so much stuff on fiddle, and it's always great.
He's a really insanely talented musician. He's the only guy that I know that can play fiddle, drums, and sing at the same time. I don't even know how that's possible, but he can do it. Where can everybody kind of expect to see you as far as for some music for the year? For the summer, I guess we'll say. Yeah.
Hopefully your podcast will be out by the time that the Sleeping in the Woods Festival is going, which is in late mid-May.
It should be for sure.
Yeah. I'll be playing there. I'll be playing with the local Honeys at Railbird and Under the Big Sky. We're going to do a tour out to Montana to play that Under the Big Sky, and then back through Colorado and Texas. So we'll be doing that. I'll be playing.
Picking up some weed. Actually, we can get it here now, I think.
That's right. It won't be long.
Yeah.
I'll be playing myself. I'll be playing at the Seed Time on the Cumberland. I'll be joined by my fiddle partner, Blakely Berger, who's a phenomenal fiddle player. Everybody needs to know Blakely. She's great. She's from Louisville. She and my daughter have a group together.
So you have a daughter that's a musician?
Yeah, okay. I have a daughter who's a really good banjo player, guitar player, songwriter, and singer.
Okay.
And she plays with Blakely. But Blakely and I will be playing a duo at the Seed Time on the Cumberland. I think that's right. No, we're playing at Mars Fest up in Letcher County. I'll be playing with an acoustic band at Seed Time on the Cumberland. John and Anna and Roddy Puckett will be playing with me there.
That'll be a fun show.
That's in June, about mid-June. Then in August, I got a couple things here and there. You can go to my website, donrogersmusic.com, and find what I'm doing. I do my best to keep it updated.
Cool. Well, I think the people probably want to hear one more song. You got one more for us?
I got one more. I'll
right.
do a song.
We don't believe it.
Let me get in tune this time. Sorry about the last time.
I told you once you held on to it.
Well, it was in tune when you gave it to me. So.
Yes, because it come out box.
Yeah, man. Thank you.